Hello, it's me again, it's Hannah. And yes, I have Nirvana playing in the background. Don't freak out. Because some people on other videos are like, oh my god, if I have to listen to one more Nirvana song, and I'm just like, shut the fuck up. Okay, Nirvana are great, you can listen to them all day. So basically, I have been doing a lot of research lately, and I have a note page as usual to help me along here. And it started when I read this book, Love and Death, by Ian Halperin and Max Wallace, on the theory of Kurt Cobain's murder, to which I hand on heart believe he was murdered, and I will take that to my grave. I'm going to talk about why, of course, and if you haven't looked into this side of his death, you should. Don't rule it out straight away, obviously, if you're a Nirvana fan. There are a lot of good facts behind this, some of which I will go over. There's also a film you can watch if you don't read called Soaked in Bleach. The trailer is on YouTube. If you fancy it after watching the trailer, then you can watch it online like I did. I downloaded it. It was amazing. I also ordered it then because it was good, and I have it on DVD now. And on the topic of films, if you haven't watched Montage of Heck, please watch it. It's amazing, although it's not about his death, it is about his life, and it's great. So, I have notes, obviously, to go through here. These are facts, these are not theories, these are not things people have made up, these are cold hard facts, and whether you believe this or not, this is the truth of the matter. I'm sorry if this offends anybody, but this is a very opinionated video, and I'm going to just tell you the facts, that's all I can tell you. So, fact number one is the shotgun. Obviously, Kurt Cobain on April 8th, 1994 was supposedly had a shotgun and killed himself with that. But the shotgun shell was found to Cobain's left, which is incorrect, giving the shotgun exit chamber was to his right when he was found dead. Now, Hannah, couldn't it have flipped upside down, you're asking me? No, and that is because something happens to us when we die, like quickly, like a impactful death, and it's like a spasm. And obviously, his hand locked around the gun at the precise moment of death, which means the gun couldn't have possibly moved because it's what they call like a death grip, and they have to literally pry people's fingers from it. It's horrendous, but happens to all of us, and obviously, if we die in such a sudden way. And that is why it couldn't have physically turned upside down. And if it had flipped upside down, Kurt's wrist would have had to be an impossible angle. It's not physically possible, and there were no obstructions on the other side of the room to say that the bullet shotgun shell thing could have ricocheted to the left of his body. So that's a very strange fact, and nobody quite can explain that. Again, with the shotgun shell, there were no legible fingerprints on it. Obviously, if Kurt Cobain had loaded the gun himself, his fingerprints would have been on that. Obviously, it's a suicide, he wouldn't have been trying to hide it. But if somebody had handled it with gloves on, just in case anybody fingerprinted the shotgun shell, obviously they weren't getting caught then, and so that's great for them. Alright, heroin. Kurt Cobain injected himself with heroin before his death. Though he injected himself with 3 times the lethal dose of a severe heroin addict and 70 times the lethal dose of a non-heroin addict. And so it could have killed me 70 times the amount he took in his bloodstream. There's like 1.82 was it like milligrams or something per litre of his blood, and it was just horrendous. And so he would not have been Yeah, I'm sorry, my camera did just cut out there, but I'm just onto the point that he would not have been conscious long enough to then put all the paraphernalia away, load the shotgun. He wouldn't have been conscious long enough to do any of that. He would have been out within seconds before he'd even have managed to inject the whole of the contents that he had in the syringe. What the fuck? Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Come on, focus. Okay. This lighting, the sun's setting, and so it's very strange right now. Fuck me. Yeah, this is happening. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So physically impossible. He'd have been out cold within seconds. Would not have even had time to position the shotgun. He'd have been out, unconscious, completely gone. Okay, the chair blocking the door. Now, in the report of his death, it said there was a chair blocking the door. If it was a suicide, of course, he'd have blocked the door. He wouldn't want anyone coming in while he was doing it. But when the police actually got there was no chair blocking the door. That just appeared in a report one day. And so that chair was at the other side of the greenhouse. It wasn't blocking any door. Obviously not suggesting he'd wanted to keep anybody out. And the door to the greenhouse itself was a twisty lock. It could have easily have been locked from the outside after the person had left. The previous room attempt. Now, the toxicology medical person who actually helped Kurt during this time had come out and said that Kurt did not in fact swallow 60 pills like Courtney Love told everybody. It was an accident. He'd been taking Rohypnol, a prescribed drug that he was taking, and had accidentally mixed it with champagne, obviously maybe not knowing what would have happened if he drank the champagne with the Rohypnol, and therefore it caused this whole accident and put him in a coma for a little while. But he was fine and recovered from that, and at the time, Kurt and Courtney both said it was an accident. And suddenly, when Kurt dies, Courtney's blowing this up to be a whole suicide attempt when it was not. Let's see. Frances Bean Cobain's nanny, I've forgotten her name, but she was female, was very close. I think she's also Frances's godmother. She was working behind closed doors with the private investigator Tom Grant and offered information that she had to him at the time when Courtney Love hired him, because Tom Grant thought that there was something funny going on when he was investigating this case. And did, in fact, go against Courtney Love, even though she'd hired him to find Kurt while he was missing in the days before his death. And he then turned this into a murder investigation because he believed Kurt Cobain's death was ruled a suicide too quickly, and he believes it is a homicide to this day. So yeah, Frances Bean Cobain's nanny offered Tom Grant a backpack that had a practice sheet in it of notes taken from Kurt Cobain's diary, which is published now, called The Journals. And those specific letters were identical to the letters written at the bottom of Kurt's suicide note, the last 4 lines. They are exactly the same as the letters wrote on Courtney Love's practice sheet, which is of course strange, not to mention even to the untrained eye. The bottom section of the suicide note looks nothing like the top half, writing-wise, and so obviously it looks a bit strange. And the top part of the suicide note doesn't talk anything about suicide. It's actually Kurt talking about his relationship to music, and so it is really nothing to do with suicide at all, apart from the added in part at the bottom, which I do believe was added in, of course. So Callie was a friend and nanny to Frances Bean Cobain, friend of Courtney and ex-boyfriend of Courtney, who was a sit-in nanny, a live-in nanny for Frances Bean at the time of Kurt's death, meaning he was in the house when Kurt died, probably knew Kurt was dead, and it's just a bit sketchy that he was living there when Kurt was there. And yeah, that's, I probably think he was involved in the death, to be honest. Courtney and Kurt were divorcing. They were in the middle of getting a divorce. Kurt wanted a divorce. Obviously, she's a bitch. Oh, I probably shouldn't say that, but I'm opinionated and grunge, so fuck her. Kurt would still be alive, probably, if it wasn't for her. Yes, so they were divorcing, there was a prenup being discussed, and obviously if they'd have gotten divorced, Courtney would have got fuck all. Her band was shit anyway, let's be fair. Hull never really did too good. She kind of leached off Kurt. She always wanted the big lifestyle, the nice cars, fancy house. Kurt didn't want that. He hated anything fancy. He was just down to earth and just wanted the simple life. Courtney, on the other hand, did not. So if they divorce, Courtney gets nothing. Absolutely nothing. She'll be poor again, and she doesn't want that. But if Kurt dies, Courtney gets everything. It's funny that. Kurt was also discussing having Courtney taken out of the will, which would also not have been good in her favour. Second page of notes. Okay, so the rehab centre that Kurt was staying at probably the week before his death, he escaped from it because obviously rehab wasn't for him and he just couldn't deal with that anymore. But while he was there, Courtney had tried to contact him. I think at one time it was 13 times during one day, and he had refused every call from her. He didn't want to speak to her. And then when he escaped, he was at one point less than 10 miles from Courtney, and he didn't even bother to go and see her. Yeah. So, obviously all of these facts are facts, and you can find out more from the film Soaked in Bleach and from this lovely book, Love and Death. Obviously, I hand on heart believe he was murdered to this day, and I don't believe Courtney did it directly, but I do believe she was involved in the whole thing, and I'm not really sure who killed him, but he was killed rather than killed himself. And I know Kurt had been very happy up until the months of his death. You know, he was saying to MTV that he's the happiest he's ever been. His stomach problem had completely been cured. He had a daughter who he loved, you know, exceptionally. You can see that from footage and like montage of Heck and things like that. And honestly, I don't think Kurt, given his childhood, would have abandoned Frances like that. Having felt so abandoned basically his whole life by his father, I just don't believe he would have done it, and I just believe it was murdered. That's it. Obviously, I've just read you 2 pages of facts, and you can find them in the film and in the book. But yeah, decide for yourself. It's just what I believe, honestly. So, you can find out a lot more about this online, obviously, but basically the film is a really good place to get information from. It's quick, you don't have to do anything, grab some popcorn, sit and watch it, and let people tell you the facts themselves. There are recorded voice calls from Courtney on there. There are interviews with the police, interviews with Tom Grant, interviews with Frances's nanny, kind of, not interviews, but like phone calls and things that Tom Grant had taped, because he taped all of his phone calls, and yeah, it's just really interesting. So, believe what you will, but that's just my belief, and those are the facts. Okay. And I just hope to God that one day this investigation is reopened and justice is served, because Kurt did not deserve what came to him, and who knows, maybe he'd have still been here today at 47 years old to inspire us every single day like he already does, but just in person. It's sad. Okay. Goodbye.